Are you judging yourself based on your age? If you are judging yourself based on your age, what is it doing to your life? Ultimately, how do we stop it? Some of us are subconsciously judging ourselves. I think some of us are consciously judging ourselves. And so in today's video, I want to explain what that does, how it impacts our lives, and how we can put an end to it. Because many of us are doing it all the time, basing this age as this pinnacle situation, and if we haven't done this by this age, we're not successful, we're a failure, whatever that looks like. It's putting stress and anxiety in our life, and it's actually taking away our quality of life as well. So let's dig deep into age judgment and how it impacts us. I found that there's 3 specific areas that many of us judge ourselves based on the age that we are at that moment. And I want to start with the first one today. Age versus our achievements. And I think this is very interesting because many of us judge ourselves based on what we've achieved in life, what we've created. And it seems that the more that we've achieved at a younger age, the happier we are. And it's interesting also how there's a lot of labels. Like for people that haven't achieved as much at a certain age and then they eventually achieve, they're called late bloomers. But why do we have all these titles? What is a late bloomer? And why do we have to define ourselves that way? Why does some age have to be like, this is the pinnacle age and you have to have these types of successes and you have to have this family dynamic at this age, otherwise all bets are off? And I find that many of us fall into this because of many reasons. And we're going to talk about that, but I want to talk about the other 2 things that we judge ourselves by first when it comes to age. Age and the level of our successes, our determined successes. And that goes back to achievements, but not necessarily. Successes on what we feel like we've been successful in achieving, whether that's personal or professional. You know, the level that we've gotten to in the company based on our certain age. And looking at other people as well and their successes based on their age as well. And so these are very interesting things to think about because we can have various degrees of success, but if we're judging ourselves based on other people and what their success level is and based on their age and their demographic, we may not feel as good about those successes as we would. And it's interesting because it's really hard to live in a vacuum, but I found that if there's a way to basically stop judging ourselves, we might actually find joy in our life no matter what age. And the last way that we judge our age is the age versus the family, the marriage, the children, and basically the entire family dynamic. Okay, so many, and this happens I think more, and I'm not saying across the board, I'm not making a generalization, but I think more women judge themselves when it comes to children, right? Because women can have children up to a certain age. Many people are not able to have children after a certain age just because of reproductive reasons, right? So there's a tendency of women to be judgmental or in fear if they haven't started a family by a certain time, in fear that they're not going to be able to. Okay, and men are normally being able to have children into certain levels of their life, and so that doesn't maybe impact them as much. But I think that's something that does impact people to mostly a degree of equality is marriage. Okay, at what time does somebody get married? And I think that we have these generalizations, these kind of generalizations in our society. Oh, they haven't been married yet. They're 40 years old and they've never been married. Oh my God, what does that mean? Or you're 40 years old and you don't have any children. What does that mean? And I feel like that age becomes this huge thing that really shouldn't have all that energy and power around it. And I think if you really go back to, you know, the beginnings of society, and I think that it's interesting, when we go back historically, we understand that, you know, humans didn't live that long. Back in the day, and I don't want to give direct dates, this is not a history lesson, but I'm just giving you a reason why I believe that this is the way it is that a long time ago, if you lived to 25, you lived to be pretty old. Okay, 25 was an old age because we had disease. We didn't have any medication. We didn't have any sterilization. We didn't have clean water. We didn't have electricity. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why people died at an early age because there wasn't anything there to fight disease or anything like that. So 25 at one point in time was old. And I think that we still go back to that thought process and analysis when we're thinking about age, even though that's way far behind us. I mean, people can live into their hundreds. You know, 105, 110, you hear people living all the way to that age, and really that's not that old. But because we've been ingrained to believe that age is so important and that, by 21 you're an adult and, at 18 you can vote and this and that, and you can drink at 21 and you can make these decisions. And I think that we've gotten to a point where we believe that age is so pinnacle to our life. And so if you really think about it historically, yes, 25 might have been old because there was so much disease rampant and there was no clean medical help and, people weren't having successful surgeries. Things were not happening like that to that level. And now we're in a different age. And it's a different time. And so we have to really think about that. And so I think that a lot of us judge ourselves based on our achievements or lack thereof, our successes or lack thereof, our family dynamic, our children and our marriage or lack thereof based on age. So thinking about this, how does judgment, personal judgment of our age, how does that affect us? The first way that it affects us is this dissatisfied life. We're dissatisfied with what we've achieved so far. We feel dissatisfied with what we have. We don't feel satisfied. We're constantly needing more, wanting more, because we don't feel like we have enough, or we don't feel like we're there where we need to be at that time in our life. And I feel like there's a lot of resentment too, because we can look at other people who may be where we think we want to be at, and they might be younger and we wish we were them, or we have some sort of resentment. But I think the dissatisfaction is that we've judged ourselves and then we don't have what we think we need at that time. And so there's always going to be that disconnect because we're believing that we need to be younger and have this, or if we're older, we need to be here. And so we're not having that, and so we're having that resistance. I also think that it breeds fearfulness of the future. What's going to happen? When is this going to happen for me? And so it's almost like this anxious situation that takes place. So if somebody has not been married and hasn't met the right person, there's that anxious feeling of, is it ever going to happen for me? Will this ever happen for me? If somebody's at the point where they want to have children and they know that they have a few years left to be able to successfully have their own children, that can be very stressful as well. And so sometimes we may be running into situations or embarking in situations that might not be the healthiest of situations for us, but we're looking to have that family. We want to get that family dynamic. We want that family nucleus. We want to have the children. We want to have the spouse, and we want to get it done now because time is of the essence. I've worked with many clients where they have raced to the finish line to get that family dynamic, and have been very unhappy because the person who wasn't who they thought they were, because they didn't spend time to really understand who the person was, because it wasn't really about that person they were marrying. It was about them creating the family and having the children and hooking it up as fast as they can. They weren't actually thinking about what was healthy for them. And so this can really put us in a position where it can actually create more pain in our life and more suffering, because we could go down the wrong path in fear of not getting what we want, but actually creating another dynamic that's not healthy for ourselves. Another aspect is it can make us sad and angry for what has not taken place in our life. And I found that it's very difficult to compartmentalize that anger and sadness when it comes to age about one thing, because usually it'll spill over into other aspects of our life. So we begin to say, okay, I'm not married at this age and I haven't achieved that, and somebody at this age has achieved that. And so that negative emotion can get in our way of being able to see things clearly in our life and be able to see that clarity. And I think that that's important, because the more negativity we're holding on to, the more we start seeing things as already a problematic situation before it has become a problem. And sometimes the very things in our life that are meant to be, we might not be able to see because we're too worried, we're too anxious, or we're too sad, and that's really taking over our clarity and our ability to really see our situation clearly. And last but not least, we're anxious and worried about our situation, the outcome, and our future. And I feel like that's direct correlation to the age, because if we weren't thinking about age and age did not impact us and there was no real worry about that, we would not be in fear or worry about the future, because we would actually have a good feeling about things actually working out. And we wouldn't feel so anxious about making things work out. And I think that the age quotient really gets in the way of our happiness, because it really clouds our judgment as to who we need to be based on that age. And who said that we need to achieve these certain successes at this age? Who said that we have to have this amount of money in the bank at this age? Who said that you're supposed to have a family or you should be married by this point? And I think that we lose sight of the individual. We lose sight of everybody has their own life journey. And it seems that we find ourselves comparing ourselves or going back to these old thoughts about age. So let's figure this out. So why do we get like this about age? Well, we talked about the historical reference, about how in history, humans didn't live that long. Okay, so automatically there's something there. I mean, people were having children when they were like 12 and 13 years old, right? I mean, seriously, this is history is history. But if we get past history, I mean, because that's pretty wild stuff, but we get past history and put that on the shelf. What are the other reasons why we get there? How do we get there? We're told that age matters. It's a big thing in our society. People are always asking, how old are you? How old are you? What's your age? People want to know how old you are when you're applying for a job or you're trying to get to college or you're doing this. Or everybody wants to know how old you are. Or if you look a certain way, oh, you look great. How old are you? Or you look in a certain way, oh, you look older. How old are you? Everybody's so interested in what everybody else's age is because they're comparing themselves as well. But we also believe in this age fallacy. Like we got to get to that certain level before and we're sold this bill of goods. Social media has actually helped us create that as well. So social media is really good for us looking at Instagram and various different social medias and comparing ourselves to other people, their successes, their failures, their family dynamic, their children, their achievements based on age, or at least what we assume their age is. And also, lastly, we live in a society of comparison. We live in a society of judgment. People want to judge based on money, based on vehicle, based on career title, based on the amount of money you have in the bank, and ultimately your age. So how do we begin to stop this? How do we begin as an individual to stop judging ourselves? The first way that we can stop judging ourselves based on age is to recognize when we're actually doing it. And I find that interesting because many of us don't even catch it anymore because we do it so often. Another way is to catch ourselves in comparison of other people and how we look at them and judge them as being older or younger than us. I also think another way of catching it about how impactful it is in your life is to catch how often are you asking other people what their age is, or trying to make decisions on how old someone is. Like, why are we fixated in that even about somebody else? Because the more we're fixated on that with other people, the more we're actually fixating that on ourselves as well. Also, how many people do you spend time with that are constantly discussing age? What about people that are constantly making themselves older or younger? And the impact that that has. So they don't believe that they're good enough to be at that age, so they're constantly making themselves younger. You have people that believe that they should be older, and they're constantly making themselves older. So how many people are you surrounding yourself with that age is a big thing? I find it interesting when people tell me that they're getting old. They use the expression, I'm getting old, I'm older, I can't remember things because I'm old, I'm having a senior moment. And it's like, come on, why are we saying this? Or I'm 53 and I'm so old. Or you'll find out when you're in your 50s what age is like. And, or I had to get glasses, or you'll get glasses when you hit a certain age because it's just the way it is. We all get old. These types of sayings and these thoughts are what's impairing us from actually focusing our life on where we need to focus on. Because again, that fear factor, when somebody tells you, oh, you'll find out when you hit 40, you'll end up getting reading glasses, you mark my word. I mean, first off, why are they putting that on you? But second of all, why are we categorizing age constantly, constantly, in a fearful way? Think about it. And it's interesting too how, look at age from the other perspective. If somebody has a terminal disease, and they're 80, it's okay because they're old. Think about that. Oh, so-and-so came down with this, and people go, oh, that's so sad. How old is he? 80. Oh, well, he's old. But if somebody has a terminal disease at 22, oh, that's horrible. That's absolutely horrible. It's at the beginning of their life. But see how we categorize age with something being okay while other things aren't. Why does it make it okay that somebody gets a disease just because they're older? It's like we've just kind of accepted that. And think about what that does on the back end, is that we begin to accept things about ourselves that we might have actually been able to overcome, like maybe with exercise and good diet we could have overcome, but we accept it because of our age. So we make these different concessions based on age. And so I want you to really think about this in a bigger scope and understanding how this is impacting you physically, not only just physically, mentally and emotionally. And how the impact of believing age is important has probably gotten in the way of many things in your life and has actually been kind of tragic in certain ways because it's taken away from the quality of your life. And so the reason why I created this video is important because I do believe that we owe it to ourselves to understand, am I judging myself based on age? Am I comparing myself against other people, thinking that they're younger or older than me and their successes or their failures or their family dynamic or whatever? And then why am I trying to push myself so hard down a certain road just because of age, just because of the numbers that reflect how long I've been on this planet, this lifetime? Does that make any sense? And then how am I allowing some things to be okay because of my age and some things not to be okay? And so just some food for thought, because I think this can really open our eyes to some conditioning. Because I think many of us are conditioned to believe this. We were raised around family that maybe age was extremely important. Very interesting. Or you were told this, or you believe this. And so this might be able to help, but I want you to start catching it in yourself. And then why are you giving it so much value? What does it really mean? And does it really hold value, or have we just been conditioned to believe it? Thank you for watching the video, and please share this with any family or friends. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. In the meantime, in the comment section, have you been able to let go of age? And how did you do it? How did you begin to start cutting the ties between your age and yourself? Because it's very interesting. Many people go through different mindsets. Perhaps you had an epiphany one day and you realized, I'm not my age. Or maybe you started realizing that the less that I focus on age, the younger I feel. All this is very interesting. I think it can very much benefit everybody here that's reading the comments, because in the end, it's not our age, it's really how we feel. And if we're feeling good and we're not anxious and we're not stressed and we're not worried because we're not betting everything on this age, our life is probably a lot better. We're feeling a lot more solid and we're in a lot more healthy position. In the meantime, don't forget to live your true life.